afternoon. I think it's a small gathering. We will try to put that for call discussion. At the same time, we have quite a number of people online. Some are very overseas country. So even though our topic is interesting, our attendance not so large, still I think we will have a very meaningful discussion. And I hope that this kind of seminars, workshops, we continue over the years so that we all have a chance to discuss further issues that are interesting not only to us, but also those outside. And today we are honored to have to speak on this important topic. Iran, the unification of the U.S. war on Iran, Middle East, and the Gulf states. This is a very important issue, not just for the world, but I think even for the future generation. So we have the very much expert from the Netherlands.
Thank you.
And he will enlighten us about all this analyzing the issues and also the implications of the present situation. So I will like Haytham to speak on this.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I thank Professor Thomas Chan and the team of the Ng Teng Fong Sino Group Belt and Road Research Institute at Hong Kong Chuhai College for this opportunity to speak today about a complex topic, the American-Israeli war on Iran and its global and regional implication. 84 days have passed since the start of the war launched by Israel and the United States against Iran without any legal justification. On February 28, this war is the second round of the war that Israel waged against Iran in June 2025, which lasted 12 days and in which the United States participated by bombing Iranian nuclear facilities, declaring at that time that it had completely destroyed them. Despite the ceasefire agreement between the parties, Israel, the United States, and Iran, which came into effect on the last April 8, to halt hostilities, an agreement was brokered by Pakistan with the support of China and the regional actors, mainly Turkey, Egypt, and Oman. The outcome of this negotiation is to reach an agreement or a framework agreement to end this war and resume negotiation on the Iranian nuclear program. Or if this failed to happen, we are expecting the resumption of the strike against Iran in an attempt to force it to surrender and to make more concessions regarding its nuclear program and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. In this lecture, I will address two aspects: a political military dimension concerning war and peace scenarios, and a socio-economic dimensions concerning the impact of this war on the global economy, particularly the consequences of closing the Strait of Hormuz and disrupting the supply of energy and other goods, especially food and medicine and fertilizers. To begin with, this war is an extension of a long-standing political and security conflict between Israel and the United States on one side, and Iran and its allies in what is called the resistant axis on the other side. This conflict dates back to 1979, the year of the Islamic Revolution's victory in Iran and the fall of the Shah Muhammad Reza Pahlavi regime, an ally of America and Israel. The Islamic Republic, founded by Imam Khomeini, adopted the Palestinian cause and has since supported the resistance movement against the Israeli occupation in Palestine, Lebanon, and the Syrian Golan Heights. This Islamic regime also adopted a discourse hostile to American imperialism and its hegemony in the world and the region. We cannot delve into these historical milestones spanning nearly 5 decades with all their details, complexities, and transformation, beginning with the Iran-Iraq war launched by Saddam Hussein against Iran in 1980 with the support of the United States and the Gulf Arab states, which lasted until 1988, and culminating in the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 and the emergence of unipolar world order, with America striving to impose its absolute hegemony on the world and the Middle East region. There is no doubt that Iran's support for the Palestinian cause and the Lebanese resistance following the Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 1982 and the rise of Hezbollah. This liberation of Lebanon soil from Israeli occupation in May 2000, due to the Iranian support by money and weapons to Hezbollah, and its support to Palestinian resistance movement, particularly Hamas and Islamic Jihad movement, since the start of the Palestinian Intifada in 1987. All this support by Iran has triggered Israel and caused numerous Israeli wars on Gaza Strip since Hamas took control of the Strip in 2007, up to Hamas attack on Gaza envelope on October 7, 2023. This has made the regime change in Iran a strategic objective for Israel and the United States. The October 7 attack and the subsequent support for Gaza from Lebanon and Yemen by Hezbollah and the Houthi and some Iraqi faction have made this objective a priority for the Israeli government, headed by Benjamin Netanyahu, especially after the heavy blows Hamas suffered in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon. It is no secret that Netanyahu managed to convince the US President Donald Trump to allow him to attack Iranian nuclear facilities and wage war in Iran, with the US joining the conflict in June 2025. He later persuaded Trump to launch a joint war on last February with the aim of overthrowing the Iranian regime. This war was to begin with the assassination of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and dozens of top military and political leaders through airstrike on their homes and headquarters. This war sparked controversy in the United States regarding whether this war was America war or Israel war against Iran, waged by the US on its behalf, given that all previous US presidents had refused to become involved. Iran demonstrated a remarkable resilience and steadfastness after 40 days of intense warfare waged against it by the world's and history's greatest nuclear power and the strongest regional power in the Middle East, America and Israel. This war involved some 15,000 airstrikes targeting nuclear facilities, military factories, civilian plants, schools, universities, hospitals, government and media institutions, power stations, bridges, and oil fields. Despite these attacks, Iran managed to elect a new supreme leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, the son of the late Ali Khamenei, and appoint replacement for those assassinated, thus maintaining the regime cohesion and control through the war. Following the failure of the American-Israeli plan to overthrow the Iranian regime and replace its leadership with a pro-American one similar to the Venezuelan model, Washington and Tehran returned to negotiations in Islamabad. Ironically, the two wars launched against Iran in June 2025 and February 2026 occurred amidst ongoing nuclear negotiation between the two sides in Oman and Geneva, where significant progress was being reported. Despite the failure of the first round of direct talks between Iran and the United States in Islamabad, the Pakistani mediation efforts between the two sides continued and intensified this week with the Pakistani Interior Minister's visit to Tehran. And there are reports of a planned visit by Pakistani Army Chief Hassan Munir to Iran this weekend to achieve a breakthrough, especially given Trump's threat to resume war and strike Iranian energy and oil facilities, bridges, and infrastructure under the banner of destroying the Iranian nations. I will speak about the expected scenarios. Some observers and analysts believe that Trump's announcement a week ago that, at the request of Gulf Arab leaders, he had postponed a planned military attack against Iran last Tuesday. This does not preclude the possibility of renewed war, but rather may indicate this imminence. Trump's repeated and sometimes contradictory statements about war owing to the complex situation he faces, having failed to secure an agreement with Iran on the nuclear issue and the freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, even after nearly 40 days of unprecedented force and a continuous blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Against the backdrop of the deadlock in negotiation with Iran, Trump is holding ongoing consultation with U.S. security and military leaders regarding available options to increase pressure on the regime in Tehran, including a limited and focused resumption of fighting. Thus, Trump finds himself practically faced with a series of problematic options. The first option, reaching a framework agreement that ends the war and that reopens the Strait of Hormuz and begins a month of a month of talks on the nuclear issue and other matters in Islamabad. Iran feels it possesses two bargaining chips: the ability to close the Strait of Hormuz and the threat to strike energy production in the Arab Gulf states if their facilities are targeted. This does not offer Trump a ladder that would allow him to declare the war over. Tehran is unwilling to return to the status quo in the Strait of Hormuz and has set a series of strict conditions regarding its control of the strait and the lifting of the U.S. sanction even before entering into talks on the nuclear issue, where it also hints that it's unwilling to make far-reaching concessions. There is still a dispute between the United States and Iran over the fate of Iran's 60% enriched uranium and Iran's right to enrich to low level up to 3.67%. Sorry. Washington demands that the enriched uranium be transferred to the US, a demand Iran rejects, proposing instead to reduce the enrichment level and keep it in Iran. However, Russian President Putin has proposed to Trump to transfer this 440 kilograms of enriched uranium to Russia, but Trump rejected this proposal. Washington rejects continued enrichment in Iran and calls for zero enrichment or a 20-year suspensions, while Iran proposed a 10-year suspensions. This is the main problem in the talks between Iran and the United States. The second option continuing the blockade of Iranian ports by the United States Army. The US blockade is severely damaging the Iranian economy and could potentially cripple Iranian oil wells and the production capacity. However, the Iranian regime has demonstrated the capacity for long-term resilience, even at the expense of the economy and the well-being of its population. The third option, America forcibly breaking the Iranian blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and returning to the freedom project that Trump announced 2 weeks ago, and then abandoned within 24 hours. This comes amid concerns from his allies and that the move could lead to a wider escalation and dangerous economic crisis in the Persian Gulf, as well as promises that a good Iranian offer is forthcoming. The fourth option, a limited or expanded war. Trump might consider gradually increasing pressure on Iran to force concessions, either through warning strike against electricity and energy infrastructure inside Iran, or through a large, complex, and dangerous ground operation to remove the enriched uranium from Iran. Iran is expected to retaliate by targeting energy facility in the Arab Gulf states. Then oil prices are also expected to surge, and the war could potentially escalate into a full-blown energy war. And for Trump is declining on the all of this comes at a time when support for the war and for Trump is declining in the United States on the eve of the midterm election in November, partly due to rising fuel prices in the United States. The fifth option, Trump declares victory and withdraw from the war, similar to his abrupt halt to the military operation against the Houthi in Yemen last year. Trump could declare a military victory over Iran and withdraw US forces from the Strait of Hormuz. This would open the strait and free the global economy from the grip of the energy crisis, while some analysts see this as the least costly option for the United States under the current conditions. It could undermine the principle of freedom of navigation in international waters and potentially encourage other actors in the Middle East and around the world to impose transit fees in maritime choke points from Bab el-Mandab to the Straits of Malacca. Despite Trump's hesitation and what appears to be pressure from his Gulf allies to maintain diplomacy for now, scenario analysis suggests that if Iran continues to adhere to its position regarding the draft agreement it presented to the United Nations, which Trump rejected and said it is insufficient, the likelihood of renewed war increases sooner or later. American media outlet reported that the United States and Israel have prepared to an unprecedented degree since the ceasefire for the possibility of renewed fighting this week. Trump received a briefing from the commander of U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, regarding U.S. operational plans, describing as a short, aggressive campaign aimed at disrupting Iranian calculation. Now the Iranian regime is no longer willing to back down and allow freedom of navigation in the strait without an agreement with it, and guarantees against a return to war and the release of some of its frozen assets. Excuse me. the Iranian now they feel stronger because they think Trump is quenched by the upcoming midterms of Congress elections, and also because there will be next month in June the World Cup in the United States. So they think he's not willing to restart the war. So that's why they are more solid in their demands and in their and don't want to make more concessions. Thus, in effect, Iran is preventing Trump from unilaterally withdrawing from the war. From the Israeli perspective, the worst possible development would be reaching an agreement with Iran that it considers unfavorable for it, even if it comes after another round of fighting, perhaps the last war during Trump presidency. And we know that Netanyahu has tried with many US president, to convince them to fight against Iran and especially targeting the nuclear facility, and they all refused. Even Trump, in his first term, refused to get involved in the war against Iran. But suddenly, we don't know, some analysts, some reports, they said maybe because of Epstein files and Trump maybe is involved and they are like blackmailing him. So he agreed with Netanyahu, was convinced to enter this war, and Netanyahu convinced him that the Iranian regime is weak and they can overthrow the regime within days, and this failed. And now the American administration blamed Netanyahu for his calculation, and now they want like an exit. And Trump wants an exit, but he wants also to declare victory, and the Iranian, they don't want to give him this victory. Aside from its central role in the direct war with Iran, Israel's influence in negotiation between Washington and Tehran has become limited. Therefore, Netanyahu is working to leverage the strategic partnership and multi-phase security and political ties with the United States to convince Washington that long-term stability in the Middle East, which will have repercussions for the global economy, will not be achieved without ending the Iranian nuclear program. And for Netanyahu, this could not be ended by peace, could be ended by war. Gulf state official warns that the most dangerous consequence of the war is the undermining of the idea of a stable regional security system. The Qatari foreign minister's spokesman stated that the most significant outcome of the war is the collapse of the concept of a regional security system in the Gulf. This was manifested in Iran's targeting of oil facilities, American military bases, and some infrastructure in the Gulf states. This war has shattered the long-held illusion that the Arab Gulf states are immune to conflict. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar were subjected to missiles and drone attacks and energy facilities, airports, ports, and sustained varying degrees of damage. The Gulf states were a primary target of the Iranian response, along with the US interests and bases, as well as Israel. Anwar Gargash, a former minister and diplomatic advisor of the Emirati president, announced that his country would reassess its international relations to determine who it can rely on. Saudi Arabia and Qatar expressed disappointment with Trump, who had pledged to end wars, but then launched a new one without consulting them. And many Gulf officials and analysts, they were like angry with the American war because they were targeted by Iran, and even the American bases could not protect them 100%. And the priority was to protect the Israeli soil, not the Gulf soils. Before the war, approximately 20% of the world's oil supply passed through the Strait of Hormuz, making it the only lifetime for countries like Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Iraq. The more than 30% increase in oil prices reflects the fragility of the market. The Arab Gulf states are considering alternative projects such as pipelines, but this will take years and remain vulnerable to targeting, and they fear that Tehran will exploit this corridor as a long-term pressure tactic. The economic losses for the Gulf states. The United Nations Development Program, UNDP, estimated that the Gulf states have lost between 100 billion and 168 billion US dollar of their GDP, with growth contracting between 5.2% and 8.5%. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz resulted in daily losses of approximately $1 billion, totaling 18 to 20 billion in less than a month. Oil and liquefied natural gas revenues declined by about 15 billion in the initial periods. There are warnings of the risk of losing 3 million jobs. Comprehensive estimates indicate that the long-term direct and indirect costs could approach 400 billion US dollar. The war impact on the global economy. Global factories are facing sharp increases in production costs, and activity is showing even in the services sector. Surveys show that the Eurozone is among the hardest hit. Inflation has risen in Europe, the United States and UK, and other countries, especially like in the poor countries like Africa and South Asia. While core inflations, including fuel, has not yet seen similar increases in some countries. The International Monetary Fund has lowered its global growth forecast to 3.1%, warning of a recession if the unrest continues. It expected the unrest to extend beyond the end of the year. Now, who are the winners and losers from this war? The most loser of this war, they are the Iranian people, which suffered of over 3,600 deaths. Most of them, they are civilians. And the destruction of thousands of economic facilities, infrastructure, nuclear facilities, military and civilian factories, as well as thousands of people, they lost their jobs. There are no definitive estimates of Iran's economic losses, but experts estimate them at over $300 billion. Lebanon. Human losses in Lebanon are estimated over 3,070 civilian casualty and 9,000 wounded since the resumption of the hostilities by Israel on March 2nd. Nearly 1 million people have been displaced from southern Lebanon and western Bekaa Valley and southern suburbs of Beirut. Israel destroyed entire villages along the border, reaching approximately 65,000 villages, and destroyed around 50,000 housing units. The losses from the Israeli war on Lebanon are estimated at over $30 billion. At least 13 U.S. Service members have been killed, and approximately 300 to 500 personnel wounded. The United States has lost or sustained damage to at least 40 military aircraft, including other like drones and refueling tankers and radars, and the Iranians are talking about targeting and like destroying 14 bases in the Gulf states. The financial cost for the United States, according to the Congressional Research Service, reported that the cost of the U.S. military operation had reached roughly 29 billion due to the equipment replacement and ongoing operations. The Israeli losses. Israeli authorities have reported about 25 to 29 civilian and military fatalities from Iranian and Lebanese missile strikes, alongside several thousand of injuries. Also, Israel has lost many like drones and military hardware and other equipment. The economic cost for Israel is estimated at around $6 billion so far. For the global economy and consumer, the consumer in the whole world are suffering from rising energy and food prices. With the warning of a major shock from the European Central Bank, American people are paying higher prices for gasoline and airfare, with inflation rising to 3.3%. For China, thanks to massive reserves and diversified energy sources, China has weathered the oil crisis. It is attempting to compensate their supply shortages from the Persian Gulf by increasing its oil and gas imports from Russia. During Putin's visit to Beijing a few days ago, an agreement was reached to implement the Siberia's Power 2 project to further increase these supplies. Who is benefiting from this war? First, Israel is the first beneficiary from the war that has weakened Iran, destroyed its nuclear facilities, military and civilian factories. China and Russia. Some observers believe that the war has forced the United States to shift its military assets away from Asia, weakening its deterrent capabilities in the region, a development that benefits both China and Russia. Russia has benefited from this war because its energy revenues doubled to 19 billion US dollar in March, despite Ukraine's attack on its oil facilities. The other beneficiaries are the oil companies, who had made enormous profits up to 100 billion expected for 6 major companies, and also the renewable energy companies. The oil crisis had deepened the desire to transition to clean energy despite rising raw material costs. And also the arms and drones company are achieving record profits as global military spending rises by 2.9. Thank you very much.
Welcome to Ng Teng Fong, Sino Group General Research Institute at Hong Kong Chupai College. Today we are introducing a new segment to our seminars and conferences, and that would be based on the debate. Because we're here at NSBRRI, we have an excellent team of senior academicians who do in-depth research beside their academic work, but we also have a team who do research on the current situation, what is happening behind the curtain. So in that case, we will try to bring new questions, because new questions will bring nuance, and that nuances lead us to the solution. So here we will talk on the issues that nobody wants to talk, particularly in the Western narratives. This is our first setting, and thank you, Dr. Haytham Mouzahem. So as I said, we're here, we will discuss some new questions and current situation. My first question is about the common people that you have already mentioned, but I do want to know more about that, because at the end of the day, it's the people who suffer the war, not the rulers. So if I may ask you, how are the people of the Middle East, you already mentioned Iran, but there are other countries also, after February 28th, how it changed their lives?
Thank you for your question. First, as I mentioned Iran, because it was like the main target of the strikes, and we don't know exactly how much it's damaged, especially because they cut the internet in Iran, and the media is not very free in Iran, so we don't know exactly how they are talking about 3,600 losses, and this is a minor number if you compare to Lebanon, which is like a small country, and we have more than 3,000, and it was not the main target for America. It was a target for Israel, So, but
schools,
yeah.
Is it still closed or partially open, partially closed?
Actually, it was closed during the war. Now maybe they restarted some schools, but there are many schools and universities that were destroyed. Some hospitals, some media institution, factory. There are like factory of steel and iron and other materials. There are civilian factories that were destroyed by Israel and the United States, and like thousands of people, they lost their jobs, and these people, they got salaries, but they don't get the full salary. They got like partially salary. So these people in Iran, especially, because before the war, they were suffering from the inflation and from the rise of dollar and the collapse of the Iranian Toman or Riyal. So now, after the war, the inflation is increased. So we don't know exactly the situation, but it is doubled, if not tripled after the war. For example, in Egypt, yesterday, like a colleague from Egypt was telling me that they are like suffering from the rise of prices, due to the oil prices, and even in Lebanon, we are suffering, or all the countries, Africa, Middle East, South America, South Asia, because when the oil is rising, all other products are rising because of the shipment, because of the transport, because of the inflation, and in Lebanon.
There is another very important thing, because thousands of people, like from Philippines, from Sri Lanka, from India, from Pakistan, they left the UAE and other regional countries. So what is your estimate? Like how many, the numbers are in hundreds or in thousands who left because they were fully dependent on their jobs in the Middle East, particularly in UAE and Saudi Arabia, Bahrain and in Kuwait? How many people have left that region? And what are the countries whose workforce was more in those regions?
I don't have an exact number because, you know, about that, because they don't like announce these numbers.
It's in thousands?
It will be in thousands, but I mean, this wealthy countries like Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, they have like, you know, funds they can support their citizens, and, you know, they can keep jobs, you know, but I mean, now they will find like now they started to like shorten some budgets, you know, in Qatar, in UAE. For example, they delayed many like projects, you know, because they know that this will, for example, the Levan oil field in Qatar was damaged, and they need like billions to repair it, and it will take 2 years to repair it. And this is a main gas field in Qatar, you know. In UAE, we don't know exactly, but it will be uh, uh, during among the Gulf states, the most Gulf country was targeted, you know. So many hotels, they were targeted, many like the airport was targeted, support, and, you know, many facilities, and plus the American bases. So, and for UAE, especially Dubai, you know, it was relying on the tourism and investment, and, you know, foreign investors, you know. And if you don't have stability, if you don't have, you know, peace and security, investors will run away, and tourists will not come to an unstable country.
My next question would be like, as you said, that Israel was the major beneficiary of this current war. But while looking at the broader picture, particularly the analysts or critics in the West, they are saying that no, China is the main beneficiary. While the Russians were engaged in Ukraine, the American was engaged in Middle East, it was China who is making money at peace. They don't, I mean, they, without acting anything, they are getting a lot of things. What is your opinion?
On the short term, maybe China is like benefiting because the US is busy in the Middle East. It's not interfering in China business. You know, now it's focusing on Iran. But on the long term, if the Strait of Hormuz will be keep closing, like, you know, for months, it will affect the China economy, because China is relying on the Middle East, especially on the Arab Gulf states and Iran for its oil and gas supplies. And even Russia and the other, like Venezuela, or even the United States, they will buy from the United States. It cannot compensate this like lack of oil, because they like the Gulf, Persian Gulf, they like product every day like 12 million barrels, and this is a very big number. So no Russia, no other, for example, Algeria or Nigeria can reward them.
Tell me about, like, during the war, there were times that we were expecting something from Saudi Arabia, or for that matter, other countries, to retaliate the Iranian strike. How difficult was it? Like, your country has become a battlefield and you keep just neutral. So how difficult the pressure was on the Middle Eastern country, particularly on the Saudi Arabia?
From the day one, there were like many Gulf, Arab Gulf analysts and Arab Gulf officials. I remember maybe the former Qatari Prime Minister and the former Saudi Defense Minister, Turki Faisal. They were warning that we should not be involved in the war against Iran, because this is the Israel main goal. We should be neutral and don't get involved. And they know, and they were afraid the United States will withdraw from the war, and Israel will withdraw, and it will become an Iranian Arab war, like the Iranian Iraqi war that lasted 8 years. So even the Iranian, they were not targeting like civilian targets, for example. Even like they just focused on the American bases and on some like oil facilities, just like to keep the oil price rising, because they want to make a problem for the United States and for Europe and for the whole world, so they can pressure Trump to stop the war.
What we are seeing that just by closing down the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranian was smart enough, like, to create global trouble. What do you see in the long run for, particularly for the Chinese interest and those huge BRI projects in the Middle East? How you see it in conflict like such, if it remains there, how much it will affect the broader BRI projects by China?
Actually, from the beginning of this war and before, there was like the kidnapping of Venezuelan President Maduro and the control of the Venezuelan oil by the United States. And Trump has said like that he wants the Iranian oil also. So this was seen but by analysts and by China and by others, that this was targeting China in the long term, not Iran. Because if they control the oil in the Gulf, Persian Gulf, and they can control its prices and its supplies, so it will affect the Chinese economy and the Chinese development. So for China, China has good relation with both sides, with Iran and the Arab Gulf. And China, from day one, helped, and even there are some, you can tell me, that some reports that it asked Pakistan to make this initiative and to mediate between Iran and the United States to stop the war, because they want stability and peace in the Middle East and in the whole world. China, because she has interest in the BRI project, and Iran is part of it. The Arab Gulf country and the other Middle East are part of this initiative.
Yeah, I'll come later on what Pakistan did or still doing right now. But there is another question from you that the strategists or whosoever in Pakistan and those regions, they believed, and it was available in public, that Iran is just an excuse. The next target is Balochistan or Pakistan. I mean, this was just an impression. So, and there was an impression, I don't know whether this is a conspiracy theory, that people believe that this time this war is to change the basic geography of the Middle East.
Yes, I agree. Not only the Middle East, they want to reshape the whole world. The United States is in decline, and they know they are declining, and they want to profit from the time now to solidate their position, in the war, because they have this like all these weapons and all this like influence. So why they don't use it now to keep their hegemony or to delay its decline? So now, after the war on Iran, Turkey, even Saudi Arabia, which has no good relation with Iran, and they don't want Iran strong, they want Iran weak, but they don't want also Israel to become like the leader of the Middle East. And so there was this meeting between Egypt, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan. This like four Sunni powers,
Stay here. Do you believe that the regime change operation was for real and it was part of that broader or greater design? Correct?
In Iran.
The regime change in Iran. It was part of that great design to change the geography or change the regimes in the Middle East. Was it part of the deal?
Yes, exactly. After after the October 7, the Israeli perspective of the region changed, you know. So Israel now, after its defeat of Hamas and Hezbollah and its control of 60% of Gaza and assassinating of the leader of Hezbollah and Hamas, you know, they feel they are strong enough to change the Middle East. And Netanyahu said it from like the beginning of the war on Gaza and Lebanon, we are changing the Middle East, you know. And the decline of Hezbollah has encouraged Israel to attack Iran because they think, they believe the missiles in Lebanon, like they were talking about 100,000 missiles, they were aimed to target Israel if they attack Iran, you know. So when they neutralized Hezbollah like weapons, you know, so they can attack Iran, and it worked, you know, because Iran has no like air defense, you know, or they destroyed in the first round of war, you know. So this is the main target for Netanyahu, to change the Middle East and to be the main power, you know, or maybe like let's say a proxy power for working for the United States.
That was while we're tracking the whole situation, like 24/7, you and me. What we have seen that the war started combined, like on the same page, America and Israel, regime change, destruction, and things like that. But slowly and gradually, we are seeing that their agendas are now different. Like the Americans want to cut a deal on nuclear things and, you know, the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. But Israel is still sticking to the same agenda to maybe the regime change. So will they continue with it, even if the Americans cut a deal with Iran? Because now we are seeing a wide gap between Israel agenda and the American.
For Netanyahu, he has two main goals. First, his first goal is to stay in the power, because Netanyahu has a problem with the courts. You know, there are many files of corruption. He will be like judged, and he's witnessing it in the courts. You know, and he's delaying because of the war and because of the some security situation. And now there will be an election in October, and if they will vote for making it before, maybe it will be in August, you know. So for Netanyahu, continuing the war, it will give him a push for the election, you know, because polls show that the opposition, maybe they will win, and he will not become the main party who will form the new government. So for him, this is a main goal. For the Israeli strategy, you know, because they know if Iran, after years, you know, makes peace with the United States, and they will remove the sanctions and return the frozen money to the Iranian banks, and this.
But let me clear a little bit, because I got confused. Is that reshaping the Middle East, or whatever Israel is right now doing, it's part of the Bibi or the Netanyahu, or it's the core policy, strategic policy of Israel? If Netanyahu is in power or not, they will keep moving and pushing for that policy.
It is both. For Netanyahu, it is a priority to keep the war. Even now, he started the war on Gaza with no there is no excuse, you know. For in Lebanon, Hezbollah has attacked Israel after the assassination of Khamenei, so he has like an excuse for his people. But in Gaza, why he started the war, you know? And he's talking. He is that Israel is fighting on 8 fronts, you know. I don't know where there is 8 front, but he mentioned Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Iran, you know, I don't know, West Bank, Lebanon, Gaza. So, and he wants more war. If he can find like Turkey, Pakistan, you know, and he's going to Greece, you know, to chase this activists who are supporting Gaza. But for the Israeli strategy, they don't want Iran to return strong and to can have the resources and to support what they call its proxies, Hezbollah or Hamas, or the Iraqi or the Houthi faction. So for them, it's the main goal is keep the war on Iran until they change the regime or they make it very weak, so it will take them a decade to return a normal regime or normal state.
You have mentioned Bibi or Netanyahu political standing. There is a buzz that there is a case which is very well documented by a documentary recently released, the Bibi files, which show him his confessional statements on the video. And many of the people believe, particularly the left in Israel, that he's avoiding that case of receiving gifts from friends and other thing. On the other side, people are also saying across the globe that it is the Epstein file which is pushing Trump for a war. Do you think so? That these simple things can lead to those great or big leaders' wars?
Yeah, it can. In the United States, we know that the influence of the Israeli lobby is very strong, and many presidents. I remember the President Carter, after years ago, after he has no interest in politics, he was talking frankly about the Israeli lobby and about the Palestinian cause and the necessity of a Palestinian state. Before, when he was in power, he could not do that. He was broken Camp David agreement between Egypt and Israel, but there was nothing for the Palestinian people. All the presidents, when they are in power, they don't dare to upset the Israeli lobby, because the Israeli lobby is funding them in the election, and it's controlling many of the media and Hollywood, and and also they are using this files, against some politicians, So it's true, and we see every time they are showing some picture, some video, and they're talking about some issue back
to the war, after the war, how you see Iran politically, economically, socially, because we have a history that after the Iran-Iraq war, a lot of things changed in Iran. Their political stand-up changed, economy changed, there were structural changes inside the Iranian establishment. So do you foresee any change in Iran after the war?
I expect now, after the war, and hope it will end soon, the Iranian leadership, they will try to to reward the Iranian people, because they suffered a lot during this decade because of the American and Western sanctions in first, and because of some corruption in the regime, and some stupid policies of the regime, but now they don't have this wealth. They want to satisfy their people, and they should focus on the economy, on the social issue, and stop interfering in other country and supporting all these revolutionary factions in all the world. I mean, we are all supporting the right causes and the Palestinian cause, but it's not the main goal for the Iranian people to do it alone, while the other, the great country like China, Russia, they do nothing, for example, and they can do more, but they don't want to upset the United States of Israel because they have their own interest. So why the Iranian people or the Lebanese people also wants to pay the price of Israel and America policies?
We have an online question. Is US benefiting given oil price shoot up and US selling oil at price above their high production cost that has been hindering their exports? What do you think? Here's the question.
Yes, there are many reports that despite that the American people that are suffering from the oil price rising, the American oil companies are making a lot of money. And I mentioned like that was 6 companies, they made about $100 billion profits during this crisis. So, and Trump has said like 2 weeks ago, they were asking about the rise of the oil prices and if it cares about, he said not a little bit. And he was very, said bluntly, he doesn't care about the suffering of the American people because he's a businessman and he maybe has like shares in the oil company. I don't know, but you know, so his profit in the war or in the markets, not like the American normal people.
Well, coming back to your point you earlier made that there were certain countries which come closer during the war, like I may say Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt. Do you see any future bloc among those countries? Or no, it was just temporary during the war?
It depends on the like Israeli behavior and the American behavior. You know, if Israel keeps targeting and threatening all the like Arab and Muslim country in the area, I think they will be like this bloc, and I don't want to call it the Sunni bloc, but let's say this like quartet, you know, the Egypt, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, you know, and there are many reports like, you know, that Turkey will be next after Iran, and there are some reports, as you mentioned, Balochistan, you know, there were like I remember like a year ago, there was like an Israeli website, an Israeli like former general. They launched what they call the Balochistan project, which aims to like, you know, separate Balochistan from Pakistan, you know. So there is an Israeli project against Pakistan, and they know Pakistan is the only Muslim nuclear state, and in the long future, in the long term, they are like, you know, they fear from Pakistan, or they think Pakistan may like be a threat to Israel because they don't want any other nuclear state in the region.
But you have mentioned the Israeli, and we've been going through, there was an article written by a senior Israeli defense official and a researcher who said that Balochistan is playing spot in the Israeli policy. So we are already sensing those things, and there is a name with it. The name is that of United Arab Emirates. If you look at the picture in the recent war, UAE is a little bit far from the other regional countries. Like, obviously, we have seen them, they are more closer to Israelis. Why so? I mean, you are right in the middle of the storm, and you are inviting another party to come and go for a war. So how you see the future of UAE? Because they have already left the OPEC. Was it part of that thing or no?
I don't know about the OPEC if it's related to the alliance with Israel, you know, but first for the UAE, they think like, you know, they cannot rely on the United States, you know, and they have like fears from Iran, and even from like, they have problem with Saudi Arabia, and they were like afraid during the Arab Spring from the rising of the political Islam and jihadi groups. So they want to have like an ally they can rely on. So they thought Israel can help you know, uh, and uh, and now during the war they brought this interceptor from Israel, like the uh, so and they brought troops for Israel troops to help them, you know, and this for them maybe like, you know, I don't know why they don't have enough from America or from themselves. So it shows for them that Israel can help, you know, because some Arabs, you know, some especially in the Gulf, like, you know, they were afraid of Iranian. Let's say like what they call this proxies or Iranian interfering in the country, especially the country who have, for example, like Shia communities, you know, like Bahrain, you know, it's like the majority they are Shia. So they think that the relationship with Israel will give them some immunity against Iran and against their some population. And regarding like UAE wants to play like a role, like a regional war. They think if they have alliance with Israel, if they will become like a main player with America, and they have this corridor from India to UAE and to Israel, continue to Europe, this will compete with the BRI initiative. So, and regarding OPEC, I think they want to make more money, more profits because they lost a lot of money during the war. And they can like, because OPEC will put limit to their production and selling, but after they are withdrawing, they can product more and sell more. And they have this gate from the Fujairah port, from the Arab Sea. So they don't have to pass from through the Strait of Hormuz.
Another two questions. One is, if you see a couple of years back with the support of China and the back channel diplomacy, to me it was like deal of a century, because Tehran and Riyadh, they come close. I mean, who you and me know better that it was not about two countries. It was a conflict between two faiths, two beliefs. I mean, it remained for years. But we saw that, well, they a little bit open up and they established their connections. How much is current war damage that victory that the Chinese brought to both countries? How much it affected?
I don't believe the problem between Saudi Arabia and Iran, it's sectarian problem. It's more like about regional hegemony, who wants to like be like the main power in the region. Iran made some mistakes. Saudi Arabia made mistakes, you know, and also we know that American and Israelis, they like use this divide to control, you know, and they are using the Shia Sunni conflict to divide the region. Iran has suffered from some Arab Gulf states because they were supporting Saddam Hussein during the 8 Years' War, you know, and they have this history in their mind. And there are some Iranians, they think of some sectarians like issue, but you know, Iran is supporting Gaza, Hamas, which are the Palestinian people that are majority Sunni, you know, and they supported many like. For example, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, they are Sunni. They were supported by Iran. So I don't think this is only the main people, the problem, the sectarian issue. You know, Saudi Arabia during like after Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf, and even Iraq after the victory of the revolution in Iran, and the Khomeini and the other like leaders, they were like how to say, like the discourse was like there were many slogans about like exporting the revolution, you know, and this is like, you know, this royal kingdoms, you know, they don't like democracy, they don't like revolution, they want stable, you know, rules. So they supported Saddam to just keep Iran like contained, you know. And after, when Saddam, you know, invaded Kuwait, they were against Saddam and they supported the US invasion to Iran. So, and Saddam was Sunni, you know. So it's not about Sunni and Shia, it's about their stability, and they want the, like, you know, to keep their kingdom and their rules.
Coming back to that point, the same, like in future or even right now, as I mentioned, UAE has kept a distance from the regional countries. And during the war, we saw that the Iranian strikes UAE more than any other regional country. Do you foresee, because with the passage of time, we have seen that there was emerging two blocks, Saudi blocks and UAE. I mean, if you notice that, do you believe that despite the peace deal between Iran and America and things become normal, UAE and Iran come to the normal situation as it was before February 28?
Not in short time, maybe in the long time, it will become normal. No, but it needs time to restore this relation and to know. But regarding the UAE and Saudi Arabia, they have many differences, especially there was like, they have some border disputes, and the UAE, as I said, it wants to be like a regional player. They have like interfered in the Sudan. They backed the rapid forces, and they have like you know, a problem in South Yemen. They were supporting some groups in South Yemen, and Saudi Arabia is supporting the Aden government, and there was like some like this group supported by UAE. They controlled many area in South Yemen and east of Yemen. One of them, which a province which is like has border with Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia considered it a threat to its security, and they attacked. So Saudi jets attacked this and they control the area. So this dispute over South Yemen, over Sudan, while Saudi is supporting the government of Sudan or the Burhan government. So, and other like, you know, and Saudi Arabia is the biggest country of the Gulf, you know. They have like maybe 25 million population, while the Emirati people, that is not the whole population, they are around 1 million at maximum, you know. So for Saudi Arabia, it cannot be like competed by a small country. So they want to be the leader. So they don't like some like Qatar or UAE. They will like, you know, be their competitor.
Fair. I have a last question for you, and that is how you see China's role in near future in the Middle East. Like if you look at the US giant, mostly in wars, be that Afghanistan or Iraq, we saw huge investment by the Americans through USAID, DFID, and other things. But right now, I mean, under Trump, he already cut off all the USAID things. How you foresee the restructuring or reconstruction of the Middle East for peace, of course, stability, the role of China in near future? Will they get into the Middle East, or no, they will just stay away?
No, China has many interests in the Middle East. First, as I mentioned, they are importing most of their, like about 40% to 50% of its oil supplies from Middle East, and they have partners in the BRI initiative in the Middle East, and they want to keep this relationship with Iran and the Gulf country and the other Arab states. And as China has played a role in the reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Iran a few years ago, and now they are supporting the Pakistani initiative to end the war, they can play a role to reconciliate Iran and the Arab Gulf countries and can play a role in the construction of Iran or Arab Gulf states. And I think China, I would, I recommend they should do more, like not only in the relation with the wealthy countries, Arab countries like the Gulf. They have money, they don't need the China support, but the poor countries.
Can you confirm? I think that China was the last country which dropped support Gaza in medicine and food. I mean, if you look at the Freedom Flotilla, all were flop. But the Chinese, on time, they dropped some medicines and they just airlift some kids for medical treatment. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I'm not saying they are not supporting. I'm saying that
It's a
yeah.
huge positive impact.
Yeah.
So people are expecting, at least on the humanitarian ground.
Yeah, even in Lebanon, during the war, there was some Chinese aid to the Lebanese government. But I mean, they should support more the poor country like Sudan and Egypt, Lebanon, as well as Syria and Palestine.
Okay, you were asking a question for me about the Pakistan-China efforts to bring peace in the Middle East. So I have two parts. One is my opinion. The other one based on information. As I earlier mentioned, that we have a team to look after the affairs behind the curtain or information to weigh the situation for analysis purpose and give our own input. So in my opinion, there is an issue, particularly the American, and of course Israelis, they want to have an off-road to the United Nations. They want to bypass the institute that we saw in the border peace. And if you look at the Trump statements, he rebuked and ridiculed the United Nations, even NATO. So he wants to be standing alone as a power and with a muscle. So this is my perception, and that is the key issue. The Chinese push for the involvement of the United Nations in the peace process. They want to strengthen the United Nations. After the Second World War, how it works, and they will push for it, I think, in future too. I'm not aware that in coming days how the UN will play its role in the Middle East, but this is my impression that I got from the American or what their strategic statements are or communication is. The other one, as I said, is based on the information. We've been told from Tehran and Islamabad that everything is done on both the nukes and in the Strait of Hormuz. But the issue is of the positioning. The position that Iran has taken on the global stage and the position that American has taken, like who is the strong, who win the war. So both of these countries do not want to issue a statement that will sabotage the peace deal. So I guess the army chief reportedly is on a tour to Tehran. And I think that would be the moment where army chief, as you mentioned in your lecture, Field Marshal General Asimi, he will convince the Iranian for the wording of what would come out. Because, if you see the negotiation, who knows, Trump would tweet what or on social truth platform. So I think the wording right now, they are agreeing the parties, the Pakistani, they are agreeing the parties for the announcement. What word American will use, what word you will use, so that the situation would show a win-win situation for everyone. So I think that is the issue. And there is a fear, one fear. The fear is that of the Israeli strike, because, even in Oman, you saw, whenever the deal is coming close, something happened from the Israelis. So this is one fear, that this is the only thing that would stop this peace process or the final peace deal. So I guess, now this is my guess, that by the end of the week or in next couple of days, or if not in hours, we can have some positive and good news for the Middle East. That's my. Thank
I
you,
hope
Dr.
so.
Haytham. And the debate is open for you. If anybody want to ask question, Dr. Haytham. Or if there is any online question, no. So I think to wrap up the things, thank you viewers for watching us and participating in this seminar. We will keep trying to bring not only analysis but information to this platform, and in future we may see more, watch more like this session. Thank you.